The fluorescent bulbs overhead buzzed their mechanical hum as Marcus Webb pushed his mop bucket down the empty corridor of Carnegie Hall. 3 in the morning, the time when the wealthy went home and people like him appeared to erase their presence. His hands ached. 62 years old, and his knuckles had started locking up halfway through each shift. He paused outside the main auditorium, where the concert grand sat alone on the stage, and something pulled at him. A memory, a life he used to have. He was not supposed to be in there. The cleaning crew had strict instructions. Polish the banisters, vacuum the seats, empty the trash bins, stay away from the stage. But the piano called to him the way it always did. 20 years since he had touched real keys. 20 years since the accident that killed his daughter Emma and left him too broken to ever play professionally again. The insurance money ran out. The grief counseling stopped helping. The bottle became his only friend until even that friend demanded more than he could afford. Now he lived in a shelter 6 blocks away and mopped floors in a building where musicians earned more per performance than he made in 5 years. Marcus set down his mop. He walked down the center aisle, his worn sneakers silent on the carpet. The stage lights were off, but the emergency exit signs cast enough glow for him to see the Steinway. His fingers trembled as he lifted the floorboard. The keys gleamed, ivory and ebony, cool and smooth. He sat on the bench and placed his hands in position. Muscle memory. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. He began to play. Not something famous. Not Chopin or Beethoven. Something he had heard only once, 30 years ago, at a private party where he worked as hired entertainment. A melody so haunting that he memorized it in one sitting. The composer had played it for his wife. Marcus remembered watching them. The way the man's fingers danced across the keys. The way the woman stood beside the piano with tears streaming down her face. The way they looked at each other as if the music was a language only they understood. His fingers moved across the keys now, pulling that melody out of the past. The notes filled the empty hall. Soft at first, then building. A conversation between hope and sorrow. A love letter written in sound. He closed his eyes, and for a moment he was not a homeless janitor. He was a father playing at his daughter's recital. He was a young man with dreams. He was human. The music stopped, not because he finished, but because he heard footsteps. Someone was in the auditorium. Marcus froze. His supervisor would fire him on the spot. Security would ban him from the building. He stood up quickly, hands raised in apology, words forming on his lips. But the words died when he saw her. Catherine Ashford stood in the center aisle, one hand gripping the back of a seat, her face drained of color. She wore an evening gown, diamonds at her throat. She must have been at some gala, some private event in one of the upstairs rooms. But now she stared at him as if she had seen a ghost. If you are watching from somewhere in this world right now, please leave a comment telling me where you are. Sometimes stories like this feel impossibly distant until we realize how many of us are watching, listening, carrying our own weight in silence. Your comment, wherever you are from, reminds me that none of us are as alone as we fear. Type your city, your country, your corner of the world. Let Marcus know his music reached you. Where did you learn that? Her voice cracked. She walked toward the stage, her heels clicking against the floor, her eyes never leaving his face. Marcus backed away from the piano. I'm sorry. I should not have been playing. I will go. Stop. She climbed the side steps onto the stage. Up close he could see she had been crying before she entered the hall. Mascara smudged beneath her eyes. I asked you a question. I heard it once, Marcus said quietly. A long time ago. At a party. A man played it for his wife. Catherine Ashford steadied herself against the piano. What was his name? I do not remember. I was just hired help. Background music. Describe him. Marcus closed his eyes, pulling up the memory. Tall. Dark hair going gray at the temples. He wore a wedding ring with an inscription. He played with his eyes closed. When he finished, he kissed his wife's hand and told her that melody was his alone. That he would never play it for anyone else. Catherine sat down on the piano bench. Her whole body shook. That was my husband. Richard. He died 8 months ago. The words hung in the air between them. Marcus did not know what to say. He stood there in his janitor's uniform, mop water staining his pants, facing a woman whose worth probably exceeded the GDP of a small nation. He made me promise, Catherine whispered. Promise that I would never let anyone else play it. That it was ours. Sacred. When he died, I thought it died with him. I have not heard it since his funeral. She looked up at Marcus. How do you know it? I have a good ear. Always did. I hear something once. I remember it. You are a musician. Was. Long time ago. Catherine stood. She walked past him, her gown whispering against the stage floor, and stopped at the edge. She looked out at the empty seats. What happened? Marcus did not want to talk about it. Did not want to say his daughter's name out loud, because saying it made the loss real all over again. But something about this woman's grief called to his own. My daughter died, he said simply. Car accident. I was driving. I lived. She did not. Could not play after that. Could not do much of anything. Catherine turned back to him. For a long moment she just studied his face. Then she reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. Come to my office tomorrow. 10 in the morning. I do not think. That melody was my husband's soul. Somehow you carry it in your fingers. I need to understand why. 10 o'clock. She pressed the card into his hand and walked off the stage, her footsteps echoing down the aisle until the auditorium door closed behind her. Marcus looked down at the card. Catherine Ashford, Chief Executive Officer, Ashford Industries, an address in Midtown Manhattan. He was going to be fired before he ever made it to that appointment. Marcus Webb had not always been invisible. There was a time before, a life that felt like it belonged to someone else. 6 years ago, he taught piano to middle school students in Queens. He had a small apartment, a car that mostly ran, a daughter named Emma who wanted to be a veterinarian. She was 12, bright and funny and kind. She collected stray cats from the neighborhood and brought them home in her backpack. He told her they could not keep all of them. She would smile and say she was just fostering them until they found forever homes. The accident happened on a Tuesday. He was driving her to a piano competition in New Jersey. Emma was nervous. She kept running through her piece in her head, fingers twitching against her thigh. It was raining. The highway was slick. A truck hydroplaned in the next lane and spun sideways. Marcus swerved. Not enough. The impact sent them into the guardrail. Emma died before the ambulance arrived. Marcus walked away with a concussion and 3 broken ribs. The investigation cleared him. Act of God, they called it. Mechanical failure on the truck's part. No charges filed. But Marcus could not clear himself. Could not forgive the half-second delay in his reaction. Could not stop seeing Emma's face in the rearview mirror as the truck came toward them. He stopped teaching. Stopped playing. The school district put him on medical leave, but he never went back. The bills piled up. The landlord sent eviction notices. He started drinking to sleep, and then drinking to wake up, and then just drinking. When the money ran out, he lost the apartment. When the apartment was gone, he lost everything else. The shelter on 47th Street took him in 4 years ago. It was clean, relatively safe, and had a rule about sobriety. He managed to stay sober most days. The shelter's case manager helped him get the night janitor job at Carnegie Hall. $6 above minimum wage. Enough to buy food and save a little each month toward a security deposit on a room somewhere. Not enough to ever feel like a person again. Now it was 6 in the morning and Marcus sat in the shelter's common area. Catherine Ashford's business card on the table in front of him. Other residents shuffled past. A man named Jerome who used to be an accountant. A woman named Teresa who used to be a nurse. People with before lives. People who knew that you could lose everything in a single moment and spend the rest of your existence trying to remember what solid ground felt like. You look like someone handed you a winning lottery ticket and you don't trust it, Jerome said, sitting down across from him. Woman wants me to come to her office this morning. What kind of woman? Rich kind. The kind that owns buildings. Jerome whistled low. What you do, hit her car. Played a song her dead husband wrote. And she wants to sue you for copyright infringement. I do not know what she wants. Jerome leaned back in his chair. Maybe she wants to help. Rich people do that sometimes. Makes them feel good about themselves. Or maybe she wants to make sure I never play that song again. Maybe she is going to threaten me. Have me arrested for trespassing. Only one way to find out. Marcus did not go. He told himself he would, but when 10 o'clock came he was still sitting in the shelter, staring at the card. By noon he had convinced himself it was a bad idea. By 2 in the afternoon his supervisor at Carnegie Hall called to tell him not to bother coming in for his shift. Someone had reported him playing the piano. He was fired. Effective immediately. So much for being careful. Marcus walked to Midtown anyway. It was 3 in the afternoon when he reached the building. 50 stories of glass and steel. Ashford Industries occupied the top 10 floors. Security stopped him at the front desk. He did not look like someone who belonged there. He wore the same janitor's uniform from last night, wrinkled and stained, and his hair was too long and his face was unshaven. "I have an appointment with Catherine Ashford," he said, holding up the card. The security guard looked skeptical. He made a phone call. Waited. His expression changed. "Elevators to your left. 48th floor." The elevator ride felt like ascending into another universe. Soft music played. The floors ticked by in illuminated numbers. When the doors opened, Marcus stepped into a lobby that was all marble and leather and floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. A receptionist led him down a hallway to an office at the end. Catherine Ashford sat behind a massive desk, typing on a laptop. She looked up when he entered and stood immediately. "You came. You said 10. I am late. You are here. That is what matters." She gestured to a chair. "Sit." Marcus sat today. The chair was more comfortable than his bed at the shelter. Catherine closed her laptop and folded her hands on the desk. "I had someone look into you. Marcus Webb, former music teacher. Lost your daughter 6 years ago. Lost your job, your home, your life. You have been living in a shelter and working night shifts ever since." Marcus felt his face flush with shame. "If you brought me here to remind me what a failure I am. I brought you here because I need to understand something." Catherine stood and walked to the window. "My husband Richard was a composer. Not famous. He never wanted to be. He wrote music for me. Just for me. That melody you played last night was the last thing he composed before he died. He played it for me on our anniversary. 3 weeks later, he had a heart attack in his office. I found him." Her voice was steady, but Marcus could hear the grief beneath it. "I have spent 8 months trying to figure out how to keep living," Catherine continued. "I run a company with 15,000 employees. I sit on 4 different boards. I have more money than I could spend in 3 lifetimes. But none of it matters because the person who made my life make sense is gone. And then I walk into an empty concert hall at 3 in the morning and I hear his voice again, coming from a man who should not even know that music exists." She turned to face him. "So I'm going to ask you this. Do you believe in signs?" Marcus did not know how to answer that. "I think my husband sent you to me," Catherine said. "I think he knew I was drowning and he found a way to reach me. I'm just a janitor who should not have been playing that piano. You were a musician. You are a musician. You have a gift. I have nothing. Then let me give you something." Catherine walked back to her desk and pulled out a folder. "I'm offering you a job. Not as a janitor. As my personal assistant. You will help me with a project I have been avoiding since Richard died. In exchange, I will pay you a salary of $80,000 a year, provide housing, and cover your health insurance." Marcus stared at her. "Why?" "Because I need someone who understands loss. Because I need someone who loved music the way Richard did. Because you played his song and I heard his heart in your hands." She slid the folder across the desk. "This is the contract. Read it. Think about it. But I need an answer today." He opened the folder. The words blurred. Salary. Benefits. Housing. It was more than he had dared to dream about in years. But something felt wrong. Something felt too easy. "What is the project?" he asked. Catherine sat down. Richard left behind hundreds of compositions. Pieces he never finished, never played for anyone. They are sitting in our home, collecting dust. I need to do something with them. Catalog them. Preserve them. Maybe even find performers who can bring them to life. But I cannot do it alone. Every time I try, I fall apart. If you are still watching, if this story has touched something in you, I need to ask you to do something. Please, take a moment to hit the like button. Leave a comment about what this story makes you feel. Subscribe if you want to see how it ends. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it. Stories like Marcus's matter because they remind us that we all deserve a second chance, that grief does not have to be the end, and that sometimes the smallest acts of courage can change everything. Check the description for more information about where this story goes next. Your engagement keeps these stories alive. Thank you. Marcus closed the folder. I will do it. Catherine's face softened. Relief washed over her features. Thank you. When do I start? Now. I will have my driver take you to get your things from the shelter. You will be staying in the guest house on my property. It is small but private. You will have access to Richard's studio and his collection. We will work together every morning. Marcus stood. His legs felt unsteady. This could not be real. Any moment now he would wake up on his cot at the shelter and realize it was all a dream. But Catherine extended her hand, and when he shook it, her grip was firm and real. One more thing, she said. I need you to play that melody again. Tonight. At my home. I need to hear it when I am ready, when I can really listen. Marcus nodded. He did not know that this kindness was about to bring a different kind of storm. Catherine Ashford was not a woman who acted without thinking. She built a fortune on calculated risks and careful research. But what she did not calculate was the response from her late husband's family. Richard's brother Daniel had been circling for months, waiting for Catherine to show weakness. He wanted control of the company. He wanted Richard's estate. And when word spread that Catherine had hired a homeless man with no credentials and installed him in her guest house, Daniel saw his opening. 3 days after Marcus moved in, a private investigator showed up at the property. He took photographs of Marcus entering the main house. He interviewed former colleagues from the school district. He dug into the accident record from 6 years ago. He built a file. 1 week later, a lawyer delivered that file to Catherine's office. Daniel Ashford sat across from her, his expression smug. You are making a fool of yourself, Daniel said. Hiring some vagrant off the street. Letting him live on your property. People are talking. People always talk, Catherine replied. This man has a history. Depression. Alcoholism. He lost his teaching license. He did not lose his license. He resigned. Because he could not handle the job anymore. Because he was unstable. Daniel leaned forward. I am trying to protect you. Catherine. Richard would not want this. He would not want you taken advantage of by some con artist who learned a song and is using it to manipulate you. Catherine's jaw tightened. Marcus is not manipulating me. Then what is he doing? What kind of assistant work requires living in your guest house? What kind of project justifies an $80,000 salary for a man with no relevant experience? That is not your concern. It is my concern when you are acting irrationally, when you are making decisions that put the company at risk. Daniel stood. I'm filing a petition with the board. I'm going to argue that you are not mentally competent to run Ashford Industries, that your grief has clouded your judgment, that you need to step down. Catherine rose from her chair. Get out of my office. This is not over. Daniel left, taking the file with him. Catherine sat back down. Her hands were shaking. She knew Daniel had been waiting for this. Richard's death left her vulnerable in ways she had not anticipated. The board respected her, but Daniel had allies. If he could paint her as unstable, if he could make her look like a grieving widow who had lost touch with reality, he might actually succeed. She picked up her phone and called Marcus. We need to talk. Marcus arrived at her office an hour later. She told him everything. Daniel's accusations, the petition to the board, the investigation into his past. I will resign, Marcus said immediately. I will leave. I do not want to cause problems for you. No. Catherine's voice was firm. You are not leaving. We are going to fight this. How? Everything he said about me is true. I did lose everything. I was drinking. I did walk away from my job. You also survived. You got sober. You rebuilt what you could. That is not weakness, Marcus. That is strength. The board will not see it that way. Then we make them see it. Catherine pulled out her laptop and opened a file. Richard kept journals. He wrote about his music, his process, his thoughts. In his last entry, he wrote something I did not understand until now. She turned the screen toward Marcus. The entry was dated 2 weeks before Richard's death. It read, If something happens to me, I hope Catherine finds someone who understands that music is not about perfection. It is about truth. It is about showing up broken and playing anyway. That is the only kind of music worth hearing. Marcus read the words twice. He would have liked you, Catherine said quietly. You do not know that. I do, because you play like he did. Like the notes matter more than the audience. Like the music is the only honest thing left in the world. Marcus looked at her. What do you need me to do? Stay. Work. Let me handle Daniel. Catherine closed the laptop. I'm not going to let him destroy you because he wants to destroy me. But Daniel did not wait for the board meeting. He went to the press. The story broke 2 days later. Billionaire CEO Catherine Ashford under fire for hiring homeless man. The article featured the investigators' photos. Marcus entering the main house. Marcus walking the grounds. The headline made it sound sordid, inappropriate. The comments section filled with speculation. Was this a romantic relationship? Was Marcus blackmailing her? Was Catherine losing her mind? Marcus saw the article on his phone while sitting in Richard's studio. He had been cataloging compositions all morning, carefully sorting through decades of handwritten sheet music. Now he stared at his own face on the screen and felt the familiar weight of shame pressing down on his chest. He walked to the main house and found Catherine in her study. I am leaving, he said. No, you are not. This is only going to get worse. They are going to dig into every mistake I ever made. They are going to turn me into a monster. Let them try. Catherine stood and walked over to him. I have been fighting people like Daniel my entire life. Men who think grief makes women weak. Men who think they can take what they want because they believe they deserve it more. I am not giving them the satisfaction. This is not about satisfaction. This is about your life. Your company. And what about your life? Catherine's voice rose. You think I do not know what it costs you to be here? To let me ask questions about your daughter? To sit in that studio surrounded by someone else's music and remember everything you lost? You are here anyway. You show up every day. That is courage, Marcus. Do not let them take that away from you. Marcus sat down. He was so tired. Tired of being strong. Tired of carrying the weight of his past. Tired of hoping that someday the pain would ease and he could breathe without feeling like his lungs were full of broken glass. I do not know how to fight this, he said. Then let me fight for you. Catherine hired a public relations firm. She had her lawyers prepare responses to every accusation. She scheduled interviews with journalists she trusted. And then she did something no one expected. She held a press conference. The room was packed. Reporters lined the walls. Camera crews set up their equipment. Daniel sat in the back row, arms crossed, confident that Catherine was about to make a fool of herself. Catherine stood at the podium, composed and elegant. She wore a black suit. Her hair was pulled back. She looked directly into the cameras. My name is Catherine Ashford, she began. 8 months ago, my husband Richard died suddenly. He was a composer, a brilliant man, and the love of my life. His death left me shattered. For months I could not see a path forward. I ran my company on autopilot. I avoided his studio, his music, everything that reminded me of what I had lost. She paused. The room was silent. 3 weeks ago, I walked into Carnegie Hall late at night and heard someone playing a melody my husband composed for me. A melody I thought I would never hear again. The man playing it was Marcus Webb. He is a janitor. He is also a trained musician who lost his daughter 6 years ago and has been rebuilding his life ever since. Catherine's voice did not waver. I offered Marcus a job because I need help preserving my husband's work. I offered him housing because he deserves stability. I did not do this out of pity. I did this because talent and worth are not determined by someone's current circumstances. They are determined by what a person does when everything is taken from them. She looked directly at the camera. There are people who want me to apologize for this decision. People who think grief has made me irrational. People who believe that someone like Marcus does not deserve a second chance. I will not apologize, and I will not let anyone destroy him because they want to destroy me. The press conference ended. Catherine walked off the stage. Marcus watched from a monitor in another room. He could not stop the tears. The response was swift. Some outlets praised Catherine for her compassion. Others doubled down on criticism, calling it a publicity stunt. The board scheduled an emergency meeting to discuss Daniel's petition. Catherine's lawyers filed a motion to block it. The battle lines were drawn. But something else happened. Something no one anticipated. Marcus received a letter. It was addressed to him at the Ashford estate, forwarded from the shelter. The return address was from a law firm in Boston. He opened it carefully. The letter was from a woman named Ellen Hayes. She introduced herself as Richard Ashford's first wife. They had divorced 20 years ago, but she had kept in touch with Richard until his death. She wrote, "I saw the press conference. I heard what you played for Catherine. Richard played that melody for me once, a lifetime ago. He told me it was the sound of starting over. I thought you should know that. I also thought you should know that Richard would have been proud of what you are doing. Keep playing." Marcus read the letter 3 times. Then he walked to Richard's studio and sat at the piano. He played the melody. Not for Catherine. Not for anyone. For himself. For Emma. For every person who ever lost something precious and had to figure out how to keep living anyway. The notes filled the room. And for the first time in 6 years, Marcus felt something that was not grief. He felt possibility. The board meeting was scheduled for 3 in the afternoon. Catherine arrived early, her legal team flanking her. Daniel was already there, smiling like he had already won. The board members took their seats. 12 people who held the power to remove Catherine from the company her husband built. Daniel presented his case first. He showed photographs. He cited Marcus's employment history. He read excerpts from the investigator's report. He painted a picture of a woman so consumed by grief that she was making dangerous, irrational decisions. Catherine Ashford is a liability, Daniel concluded. She has compromised the integrity of this company by associating it with a man of questionable character. She has opened us up to lawsuits, to public scandal, to reputational damage. I'm asking this board to remove her as CEO and appoint someone who can lead with a clear head. The board members shifted in their seats. Some looked uncomfortable. Others looked convinced. Then Catherine stood. "I would like to call a witness." Daniel frowned. "This is not a courtroom." "No, but you have made accusations. I have the right to respond." Catherine nodded to her assistant, who opened the conference room door. Marcus walked in. He wore a suit Catherine had bought him. His hair was trimmed. He looked nervous but steady. "This is Marcus Webb," Catherine said. "You have heard Daniel's version of who he is. Now I would like you to hear the truth." Marcus stood at the front of the room. He looked at the board members. "My name is Marcus Webb. I am 52 years old. I used to teach music. I lost my daughter in a car accident 6 years ago. I lost everything after that. Not because I was weak. Not because I was irresponsible. But because grief is not something you can schedule or control. It takes what it wants and leaves you to figure out how to survive." His voice was quiet but firm. "I was homeless. I worked as a janitor. I lived in a shelter. Those are facts. But here's another fact. I got sober. I showed up every day. I did the work. I rebuilt what I could. And when Catherine Ashford offered me a chance to do something meaningful, I took it." He pulled a folder from his jacket and placed it on the table. "This is a catalog of Richard Ashford's unpublished compositions. 237 pieces. I have spent the last 3 weeks organizing them, annotating them, preparing them for preservation. This is not a favor. This is not charity. This is work. Real work. And I am qualified to do it." One of the board members, an older woman named Margaret, leaned forward. "Why should we trust you?" "Because I have nothing to gain by lying," Marcus said simply. "I do not want to be famous. I do not want to be rich. I just want to do something that matters. Richard Ashford's music matters. Catherine asked me to help protect it. That is what I am doing." Margaret looked at Catherine. "Is this true? Is that what the job entails?" "Yes," Catherine said. "Richard left behind a legacy that I could not face alone. Marcus has given me the courage to face it. That is worth far more than $80,000. Daniel stood. "This is absurd. You are all falling for a sub-story. This man is manipulating her." "Sit down, Daniel." Margaret's voice was sharp. "You have made your point. Now let the board discuss." The board members conferred quietly. Catherine and Marcus stood together, waiting. 5 minutes passed. Then 10. Finally, Margaret spoke. "We have reached a decision." Catherine Ashford will remain as CEO. Daniel's petition is denied. Daniel's face turned red. You are making a mistake. No, Margaret said. You made a mistake. You assume grief makes people weak. It does not. It makes them human. This board does not remove people for being human. The meeting ended. Daniel stormed out. Catherine exhaled for what felt like the first time in hours. Marcus turned to her. Thank you. No, Catherine said. Thank you. But the fight was not over. Daniel was not the type to accept defeat quietly. 2 days after the board meeting, a new story broke. This one was uglier. It accused Marcus of financial misconduct at his former teaching job. It claimed he had been embezzling funds from the music department budget. The accusation was false, completely fabricated, but it spread quickly. Social media picked it up. Former colleagues were contacted for comment. The school district issued a statement saying they were reviewing their records. Marcus read the story in Catherine's study. His hands shook. This is not true. I never stole anything. I know, Catherine said. She was already on the phone with her lawyers. We are going to prove it. How? They are going to drag this out. They are going to make people believe it. Catherine hung up the phone. Then we need to move faster than they do. She called in every favor she had. Her lawyers subpoenaed the school district's financial records. They obtained statements from Marcus's former supervisor. They tracked down the accountant who had audited the music department budget. Every document told the same story. Marcus Webb had never touched a dollar that did not belong to him. Within 48 hours, Catherine's legal team had compiled a file proving the accusations were false. They delivered it to every news outlet that had run the story. Most issued corrections. Some buried them on back pages. But the truth was out there. That night, Marcus sat in Richard's studio, staring at the piano. He did not feel like playing. He felt like giving up. Catherine found him there. Talk to me. I am tired, Marcus said. I am tired of fighting. I am tired of defending myself. I am tired of being a liability. You are not a liability. Yes, I am. Every time they attack you, they use me as the weapon. Maybe you would be better off if I left. Catherine sat down beside him on the piano bench. Do you know what Richard told me the night before he died? He said that the hardest thing about loving someone is watching them suffer and not being able to fix it. He said all you can do is sit with them. Be present. Let them know they are not alone. Marcus looked at her. Why are you telling me this? Because I am sitting with you. I am present. You are not alone. Catherine placed her hand on the piano keys. Play something. I do not feel like playing. Then play anyway. Play because it is the only thing that makes sense. Play because it is the one thing they cannot take from you. At this moment in this story, I want to pause and ask you something. If this story has moved you, if you have felt the weight of Marcus's struggle or Catherine's determination, then please do something for me. Hit the like button. Leave a comment about what part of this story resonated with you. Subscribe to this channel if you want to see how stories like this end. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And check the description below for more information about where we go from here. These stories survive because people like you care enough to engage. Thank you for being here. Marcus placed his fingers on the keys. He did not play Richard's melody. He played something else. Something that came from his own memory. A lullaby he used to play for Emma when she was small. The notes were simple, childlike, but they carried everything he could not say out loud. Catherine listened. When he finished, she was crying. That was beautiful, she said. That was for my daughter. I know. They sat together in the quiet. Two people who had lost the ones they loved most. Two people who had found a way to keep going. The next morning, Daniel made his final move. He filed a lawsuit against Catherine, claiming she was mismanaging Richard's estate. He demanded an independent audit. He requested that the court appoint a guardian to oversee her decisions. The lawsuit was vicious. It accused Catherine of exploiting Richard's memory. It questioned her mental stability. It demanded that Marcus be removed from the property immediately. Catherine's lawyers fought back. They filed a motion to dismiss. They argued that Daniel had no legal standing. But the court scheduled a hearing. A judge would decide. Marcus packed his things. He could not let Catherine lose everything because of him. Where are you going? Catherine asked when she found him in the guest house. Somewhere else. Anyway else, I will not let this lawsuit destroy you. If you leave, they win. Do not give them that. They have already won. Look at what this has cost you. Catherine grabbed his arm. Do you know what this has given me? Purpose. Clarity. A reason to get out of bed in the morning. You think I was living before you showed up? I was surviving. Barely. You gave me something to fight for. I'm not worth fighting for. Yes, you are. And I'm going to prove it. The hearing was set for the following week. Catherine's lawyers prepared their case. They gathered evidence of Daniel's pattern of harassment. They documented his attempts to undermine her authority. They built a defense. But they needed one more piece. They needed something that showed the value of what Marcus was doing. Something undeniable. Catherine had an idea. Can you finish one of Richard's pieces? Something incomplete. Something beautiful. Marcus hesitated. That is his work. I cannot just change it. You are not changing it. You are completing it. That is what you have been doing this whole time. Finding the missing notes. Marcus returned to the studio. He sorted through Richard's unfinished compositions until he found one that spoke to him. A piano concerto. Richard had written the first two movements but left the third incomplete. The final pages were blank except for a single note in the margin. For Catherine. Always. Marcus spent 3 days on it. He studied Richard's style, his patterns, his harmonic choices. He tried to hear what Richard would have written. And slowly, note by note, he filled in the missing pieces. When it was finished, he played it for Catherine. The first two movements were pure Richard, elegant and emotional. The third movement was Marcus's completion. It built on Richard's themes but added something new. A conversation between grief and hope, between loss and continuation. Catherine listened with her eyes closed. When the final note faded, she opened them. That is it. That is what we bring to court. The hearing took place in a crowded courtroom. Daniel sat with his lawyers, confident. Catherine sat with hers, calm. Marcus sat in the gallery, trying to be invisible. Daniel's lawyer presented his case. He argued that Catherine was incapable of managing Richard's estate responsibly. He cited her decision to hire Marcus as evidence of impaired judgment. He requested that the court remove her as executor. Then Catherine's lawyer stood. Your Honor, we would like to present evidence of Mrs. Ashford's work preserving her late husband's legacy. The lawyer played a recording of the completed piano concerto. The music filled the courtroom. Jurors leaned forward. Daniel's expression faltered. The judge listened without interruption. When the recording ended, Catherine's lawyer spoke. This composition was unfinished when Richard Ashford died. Marcus Webb, whom opposing counsel has characterized as unqualified, completed it using his expertise and deep understanding of Richard's musical language. This is not exploitation. This is preservation. This is love. The judge looked at Daniel. Do you have a response? Daniel's lawyer fumbled for words. The defendant could have hired a professional composer, someone with credentials. Marcus Webb has credentials, Catherine's lawyer said. He has years of training, teaching experience, and most importantly, he has the emotional capacity to honor Richard's intentions. That cannot be taught in a conservatory. The judge made notes. I will issue a ruling within 3 days. Those 3 days were the longest of Marcus's life. He could not eat, could not sleep. He walked the grounds of the estate, replaying every moment, wondering if he had done enough, wondering if Catherine would be okay. On the third day, the ruling came. The judge dismissed Daniel's lawsuit. He stated that Catherine Ashford had acted in good faith, that her decisions were reasonable, and that Marcus Webb's employment was a legitimate exercise of her authority as executor. Daniel was ordered to pay court costs. Catherine called Marcus into her study. She was smiling. We won. You won. I just did not mess it up. No, we won. Together. Marcus sat down. For the first time since this whole ordeal started, he felt like he could breathe. There's something else, Catherine said. She pulled out a folder. The recording we played in court has gotten attention. The New York Philharmonic wants to perform the completed concerto. They want to premiere it next month. And they want you to take a bow with the conductor. Marcus stared at her. I cannot do that. Why not? Because I'm not a composer. I'm just someone who filled in some notes. You are a musician. You brought Richard's vision to life. That deserves recognition. Marcus thought about it. Thought about standing on a stage in front of thousands of people. Thought about his name in a program. Thought about Emma, who would have been so proud. Okay, he said quietly. I will do it. The premiere was held at Lincoln Center. The hall was sold out. Critics attended. Musicians attended. People who knew Richard came to hear what had been saved from silence. Marcus sat in the front row beside Catherine. He wore a tuxedo she had insisted on buying. He felt out of place but less invisible than he used to. The orchestra played. The first two movements were pure Richard. The audience listened in reverent silence. Then the third movement began. Marcus's notes. His interpretation of what Richard might have written. The conversation between past and present. When the final chord faded, the audience erupted. Standing ovation. The conductor gestured for Marcus to stand. He did. People clapped louder. Catherine squeezed his hand. He would be so proud, she whispered. Marcus nodded. He could not speak. He could only feel. The next morning, Catherine called him into her study again. I have a proposal. Another one. She smiled. A better one. I am starting a foundation. The Richard Ashford Foundation for Music Preservation and Second Chances. We are going to find other musicians who have fallen through the cracks. People with talent who lost their way. We are going to give them resources, support, and opportunities. That is a good idea. I want you to run it. Marcus blinked. Run it. You understand what it feels like to lose everything. You understand what it takes to rebuild. You are the perfect person to lead this. Catherine, I do not have experience running a foundation. Neither did I when I took over the company. You learn. You grow. You do the work. Marcus looked out the window at the estate grounds. 6 months ago, he was mopping floors at Carnegie Hall. Now he was being offered the chance to change lives. Yes, he said. I will do it. The foundation launched 3 months later. It provided grants to musicians in crisis. It funded mental health resources. It partnered with shelters and community programs. Within the first year, they helped 200 people. Marcus worked long hours. He reviewed applications. He conducted interviews. He listened to stories that sounded like his own. And every time he helped someone, he felt like he was honoring Emma's memory. Like he was doing something that would have made her proud. Catherine remained CEO of Ashford Industries. She and Marcus became close friends. Not family, exactly, but something like it. Two people who understood that survival is not the same as living. That sometimes you need someone to sit with you in the dark until you remember how to find the light. 1 year after the premiere, Marcus returned to Carnegie Hall. Not as a janitor, as a guest. The New York Philharmonic was performing Richard's completed concerto again. This time, Catherine had arranged for Marcus to play a solo piece before the orchestra took the stage. He sat at the same piano where this all began. The audience was full. He could see Catherine in the front row. He could see faces of people the foundation had helped. He could feel Emma's presence, the way he always did when he played. Marcus placed his hands on the keys. He played the melody that started everything. Richard's melody, the one that was supposed to be private, the one that became a bridge between two grieving people. The notes filled the hall, and somewhere in that music, Marcus found peace. If you have stayed with this story all the way to the end, thank you. Thank you for witnessing Marcus's journey. Thank you for believing that second chances are real. If this story moved you, please take one more moment. Hit the like button. Leave a comment telling me what you felt. Subscribe to this channel so you can see more stories like this one. Share this video with someone who needs hope. And check the description below for information about real organizations that help people like Marcus. Stories matter because they remind us we are not alone. Your engagement keeps them alive. Thank you for being here. Thank you for caring. 6 months later, Marcus stood in the foundation's new office building. They had outgrown the original space. They now employed 12 full-time staff members. They had partnerships in 8 cities. They had saved lives. Catherine walked in carrying 2 cups of coffee. Board meeting in an hour. Are you ready? As ready as I will ever be. She handed him a coffee. I've been thinking about something. What? Richard used to say that the best music is the kind that makes you feel less alone. I think we are making that kind of music. just in a different way. Marcus smiled. I think he would agree. They stood together, looking out at the city. Two people who had been broken by loss. Two people who had found a way to turn that brokenness into something beautiful. Marcus thought about the moment in Carnegie Hall when he decided to play the piano. The moment that changed everything. He used to think it was reckless. Now he understood it was necessary. Sometimes you have to break the rules to remember who you are. Sometimes you have to play the song no one else can hear. And sometimes, if you are very lucky, someone is listening.